corporate bond spreads, so I'm looking at them now. They look a little better. They're not fabulous. The numbers have gone from about 480 basis points between Sears paper and Treasury paper down to a little over 300 basis points, 325. So I'm going to say to you, the market is reading this story a little better, but you're probably right. There's still some angst left in it. Is that about right? Is that fair?
That is about right. You have to remember that behind the corporate spreads is some fear that Sears, as a corporation, not just the credit business, will have, could have some problems refinancing or extending some of its bank lines that are coming due. It does have some large debt that it needs to roll or at least extend coming up. And I mean, if they've got that out of the picture, then yes, that's great. But it doesn't get rid of the problems, which I still think could still flare up in the credit business itself, which further down the road could be a liquidity problem.
Amy,
for the whole
Merrick,
company.
I'm sorry, Amy Merrick, let me ask you this. In terms of Sears' overall retailing business, they know what to do. They got Land's End now. I guess that's a plus. They know what they're doing out there. If there's an economic recovery, as I believe there is, I may be the only guy left, but I still think so, although I believe my partner is optimistic that I might be right.
Yes.
Anyway, suppose there's an upturn in the cycle and retailers supposed to turn up. Will Sears, get a good piece of this like they should?
I think the important thing about Sears is that they still have some fundamental challenges in their retail business. They've made a lot of changes over the past year, but they haven't gotten the sales up to where they'd like them to be. Now, Sears has always been kind of a schizophrenic retailer. Their appliance business typically is very strong, whereas their clothing business has not been doing well at all. That's what the purchase of Land's End has supposed to do to help them. But what Sears said last month is that appliance sales started falling off in the second half of last year, and especially in the last few weeks. And that's worrisome because that's a business that Sears counts on not only for their retail sales, but also to drive their credit business. All
right, well, Amy, let me just follow up on that. There's a very shrewd investor who's bought a very significant stake in Sears in the last few months. Eddie Lampert, fortunately, I work with him at Goldman. I think he's a terrific investor. He has correctly called the bottom in a couple of other retailers that I think a lot of people felt really didn't have much of a chance, especially AutoZone, which went up about 15% last week. Do you think that what does he see? Does he see a reinvigorated merchandising department? Does he see maybe competition dropping off from a Kmart? What's in the head of someone who is a great value buyer who's taking the big slug here?
Well, he does a lot better job of predicting stocks than I would, so I shouldn't call a bottom on anything. One thing that people who are optimistic about Sears say is that they think the credit business has gotten under control. Their belief is that Sears has a better sense of where their losses are going to peak now in their credit card business. And the people who are optimistic believe that Land's End will give a big boost to retail sales, that people will come in for Land's End and buy other products as well.
All right, now, Peter, one of the things that I think look, first of all, you were dead right in the fall when you flagged this problem before everybody realized, and the stock got hit for 10 points. So it's not like you're late to the party, or you were very early. But they took some serious charges in the third quarter, and then it looked like this last quarter was good. Are you feeling any more confidence yourself, especially in light of the fact that there's a lot of other credit card companies and credit businesses, subprime, that have been doing poorly lately?
That's exactly it, Jim. I mean, if you look at what you have to consider, two things when you're asking yourself the question, is the worst over for Sears credit business? And that is, do you believe the company's forecasts for bad debt, for bad loans in 2003? I don't. They've got it around about 7%. If you look at other credit card companies, they've reported bad loans well above that level. Now, there are some differences between a straight credit card company and Sears, but I can easily see bad debts going above the 7% mark. And then secondly, you have to say, what sort of clarity do we have when we look at their credit business? And the fact is that they report their credit numbers under a far less rigorous regime than do most other credit companies, and that's because they don't put their credit card deposits, they don't raise deposits to fund their credit card loans through a bank, which is regulated. And if they did that, they'd have to report far stricter credit standards, and that would probably lead to higher losses. others. And given those two factors, I think it's extremely rash to say that Sears has got its credit problems behind it. And for that reason, I'm predicting that they actually have a higher bad debt expense this year than they did last year.
All right, well, Peter, just keep it there, because
Yeah.
we're gonna stay with the story. Let's take a break here, get some commercial time. More on Sears fears in a moment. Later in our hot file, superstar tech bankers in hot water with the feds, and also the state guys. We'll have the latest chapter in the Frank Quattrone saga, Ninth and Past Young So don't go away.
Bye-bye.
With Amy Merrick of the Wall Street Journal and Peter Evis of TheStreet.com talking about the outlook for Sears Roebuck Company. Peter, I kind of cut you off there.
No problem.
One of the things that I think that you explained in your most recent article in January was there's a lot of 0% financing. Tell me how that works when it's not backed up by a car that can be repossessed. What is 0% financing for a chainsaw? I mean,
Well, as far as I understand it, Jim, that's a very good question, because you have to compare the 0% financing that's offered at Sears with, say, 0% financing offered elsewhere, maybe Target or Best Buy or something. What you seem to see is that Sears is not only offering 0% interest, it's also saying 0 payments for 1 year. And that also means that that can also lead to an artificially depressed loss number, because you don't actually start counting the delinquency for a number of months until the 0% or the 0 payment term is over. And the other thing I wanted to raise about Sears' credit business is, what about this odd circumstances under which the former head of credit was disposed of last year? I mean, the company's saying very little about that. The CEO, I mean, the guy who was shunted out has since filed a lawsuit, but the CEO says very little about that, and that could do with some explaining as well.
Amy Merrick, let's pick right up on Peter's last point. The credit card chief is gone, but he's suing the company. Nobody seems to have a handle on that. Was it the chief counsel is left? No one just seems to know exactly what that's all about. Can you fill us in? This is kind of Sears' dirty laundry, but all's fair in love and war. Right.
I'm not concerned about the departure of the general counsel. From everything that I've heard and the people that I've talked to, that seems like one of the changes that happened in the ordinary course of business. I think the departure of the head of the credit card business is a lot more troubling. One of the things that I'd like to get more answers from Sears about is that their CEO, Alan Lacey, used to run the credit card business and then was the chief financial officer. So I'm confused about why he says that these credit problems snuck up on the company in October. I would think that since he knows the credit business so well, that he would have had a handle on what was going on.
Boy, isn't that the truth? If we've learned nothing in the last couple of years, it's nothing sneaks up. Maybe the truth sneaks up, but the problem's been simmering for a long time. Peter Evis, we're last round on this. Why don't these birds at Sears securitize the credit card debt? There's a very large and healthy market for it. They can sell it in the open market, raise cash, kick out the bad debt, and live happily ever after. Isn't securitization the answer to all their prayers?
But I think that's more or less what they do, isn't it, Larry?
And can't they just get rid of all this stuff? Just haul it out of there?
Well, I mean, the problem with that, though, is not, I mean, like, you know, it's a market, Larry, as you probably understand, that even people who buy asset-backed bonds require some, you know, some measure of safety, and that could lead to higher cash collateral in the securitizations, and it could be just as damaging as any other way of financing.
Yeah, right, but you know, a good bond trader and a good investment banker hungry for a deal, since there haven't been any deals in several years, it's all a matter of price and interest rate, right?
But if you,
credit enhancement can come later.
Well, no, it requires cash in the trusts, and also if you mark down the assets to shift them, then you're going to have to take a charge probably. But I'm not sure they have that much on their balance sheet, quite frankly.
All right, so it may not be.
Well, actually, no, I think it's split half and half.
All right, Amy Merrick, last shot. Land's End, can they help Sears? Real quick, 10 seconds. Land's End, I like Land's End. I actually use this stuff. It's terrific.
That's not a Land's End suit, is it, Larry?
No, not yet. They're not into the suits. My briefcase is Land's End. 10 seconds, I've already done 20.
I know, you're stealing all my time. Sears has gotten an early bump from Land's End. This experiment is just in its early stages, but they have seen some good signs from Land's End in their stores. So
all right, you're right, Amy. I stole your time. I stepped on your line. It's a congenital problem. I'm going to work on that. Many thanks to Peter and Amy. Up
Thanks
next,
very much.
Goldman's chairman says he's sorry. Tyco's lawyer says he's not guilty. The hot file's coming up next. Please stay with us. We're going to be very opinionated.
Oh, yeah.
We did, and that's what all my teammates did.
And I'm disappointed. We knew coming in that we couldn't turn the ball over, and that's exactly what happened. And 95% of it was me turning the ball over, so that even makes it more disappointing.
So the Broncos lose 42-20. A subplot to this game, this man, Dan Reeves, who, as you know, has led the Broncos to 3 Super Bowls, has over 100 victories. His contract has expired. The man that owns the team, Pat Bowlen. Mr. Bowlen, do you intend to bring Dan Reeves back again next year, sir?
I'm not going to discuss it now.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you're going to ask me that question from now till the time we get back to Denver. You're not going to get an answer.
Do you have a desire to return to Denver next year?
Sure. I mean, I've said that all along. My desire is to be here, next year. But, I really don't have any idea what's going to happen.
The George Michael Sports Machine is brought to you by Lincoln Mercury and the complete line of Lincoln luxury automobiles.
Compare the new 32-valve, 280 horsepower Lincoln Mark 8 to everything else. Then you'll understand why, instead of introducing it, we decided to launch it. The new Lincoln Mark 8. What a luxury car should be.
Here's where Alka-Seltzer Plus fights tough colds. With tough congestion. Tough aches. Tough sore throats.
This is why you need a tough medicine. Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold Medicine. The leading cold pill only relieves congestion, but Alka-Seltzer Plus relieves congestion, sore throat, sneezing, body aches. That's tough medicine.
You bet it's tough.
Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold Medicine. It's tough medicine. For a cold with a cough, try Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold and Cough Medicine.
Just because the 80s are over doesn't mean you have to stop looking out for number one, especially when Chevrolet makes it so easy for you. For instance, for a limited time, Chevrolet has made it possible for dealers to get you a new Lumina equipped with the extras you're looking for, but without the extra cost. Now, who said the 90s were going to be dull? The sure thing is going on now. See your participating Chevrolet dealer.
We've had a lot of laughs, shared lots of good advice. You've been a real buddy from the start, and we'll always talk things through, and I guess we always will.
Hey, nothing connects buddies like a phone call.
Good friends are never far apart.
I think it's going to be hard for the Packers to realize that they really had a remarkable year this year. See, last year the Packers were 4-12. They turned around to 9-7. They had a 6-game winning streak. They had their playoff hopes on the line for the Packers, and everything falls apart. The Packers are eliminated. The Redskins are in. The Pack lose to the Vikings 27-7. Let's go out to Minneapolis, where everything went wrong. It was in the first quarter. Vikings were trailing 7-0, but not for long. Sean Salisbury at quarterback. He looks left. He lofts one up in the air, perfectly thrown to Steve Jordan, who beats Leroy Butler. 13-yard touchdown. Game tied 7-7. Second quarter, Vikings are leading 10-7. On Salisbury, he looks right, can't find anything, scrambles to the left, waits for Mike Tice to get free, which he does. Mike Tice, 34-yard touchdown, 17-7.